Okay, thanks everybody for joining us for our first Bring Your Own Lunch and Learn for 2017, also known as Feed Yourself and Learn 2017. Can everybody see my monitor? Or if you don't, let me know. Throw a message in the chat.
Okay. I don't see one there, Carol.
Oh.
Nope. Me neither. Now
There
I
we
can see.
go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to go through some of the basics, and if I'm going too fast, please let me know. But I wanted to definitely get to some more specific questions, leave time for if people have specific questions or input along the way. Of course, we encourage everybody if they have a better way to do it or some insights to feel free to share with the group. Okay, so first of all, you can access all the 1099 sections by going over here and searching menus and then typing in 1099 and get to wherever you're wanting to go. So if you start out with looking at the table and making sure that you have these all set up in your system, and you can just add them indiscriminately yourself if they're not there already. So that's the first step, and make sure that each one has the box attached, you know, that you want to use. Some people never use the rent or dividends or something, so they don't really care about it. So, but usually 1099 miscellaneous box 7, of course, is the most popular one. And then you go into each business partner and make sure that you have them set up. Oh, if it's freezing on me. That's not annoying at all. We'll edit this out in post-production. So, of course, we only have a small, Irwin's going to have a lot more, but I always like to look through and make sure that the federal ID is in there, and if it's not, like say for this one, then I would know that this, I would go through and put in here corp or something, just so you know, to let yourself know that you've reviewed it and know that it's fine that it's not set up as a 1099. It's a corporation. But then the other ones, if you have any for them that you know that you can see and put more notes, like maybe it's an employee that does some stuff on the side, or maybe you're doing some reimbursement for them, or payment to them that's subject to 1099, then I would put in here, rather than to put all the time what their Social Security number is right here, I just put a fake one, and then only change it to the real federal ID at the time of running 1099s. I know people can find it in the tools changelog if they want, but you can limit that for people to getting into that. So I just don't like to have, you know, too much documentation right on the front for people. So once you have edited all of your vendors to make sure that you have them determine 1099 or not, And this one we have an ID info for it, but it's not 1099 eligible. So is everybody following so far?
Yes.
So I'm on page 4 of the instruction sheet. If you're starting at mid-year or trying to figure out for last year, then you need to go in and enter opening balances for your vendors. So once again, since this is stuff you really only use once a year, it's hard to remember where it is. We're going to do all vendor groups. So I right now only have one vendor that's set up to be 1099 eligible, but I know that I do have another vendor that I need to add in. So I will go here and make them, set them up, and now rerun. And they're here, and so you can I can put in what number I want to add in there. And it's the one I put the fake ID in, so we'll just go ahead and keep using that. To know what amounts you need to put in for the year, this is the easiest way I always use to see just what we've paid. It's the easiest way, but it goes off payments, not invoices that have been entered. So this gives you a rough idea that at least there's something eligible, but you might still want to edit this and make sure that the payments are really have been paid in 2016. But we'll just assume that these are all paid in 2016. And then, oh. So now if you go back in, why doesn't it let me? Okay, I must have done something out of order. So all of my increased amounts of the 1099 eligible are in there now, and that's the only place that you can do increases to the 1099s amount that's going to be reported. If you want to do decreases, or well, if it's documents open, you can just go into it and modify it. So I think everybody knows that part, that this is eligible to be updated if it's open. But I'm not going to do that right now since I already, I already fixed it the other way through the opening balances. So if you want to decrease the amount, you can do that through the 1099 editing. Also, for this one, I want to say, oh no, it's only 1,000 that I want to do. And then, so that's as easy as that, to adjust that. And then from here, to do If you want to correct a 1099 box for a document that has been paid already, you add the correcting entry into the opening balances. You would add it here and then go into that vendor. Go into them again on the 1099 editing form and zero it out there if you need to modify it. So sometimes you have to do here and there and that, but that's a pretty rare occasion that you need to do the jumping back and forth between the editing and the opening balances. But those are your two places where you can control what you're going to do. So now we're ready to print the report. And I want to look at 1099s, miscellaneous, box 7 for this year. And so here's what is going to be, and I'm okay with all these amounts, both these amounts. I'm assuming that that's like the real number. And then you can print preview. We don't have it set up. We have so few, in here. I haven't set up the dual page, but that's possible to do, to print it, change it to dual page. And then if you don't like where the dollar amount is or something, then you can just go into the PLD, and move over the box that you want by clicking on it and then doing like this right arrow or left arrow up or down to put things where you want them to be. Usually it's the dollar amount is a little off, and then sometimes all of these control. Maybe you might want to move all of these over a little bit or something like that. So that's how easy it is to adjust where things are at on your report, and then save it, but I'm not going to save it because those are ridiculous. Okay, so you preview it, and then sometimes people like to preview it and then print it on the blank paper and make sure everything lines up, look through things when it's in physical form in front of you, make edits, and then go back into the 1099 editing and change whatever you want to at that point. So that's the quick overview, the fast overview. If anybody, so I would like to open it up for everybody's questions and any thoughts they might have.
Yeah, Carol, I have a couple questions, if I may.
All right.
Well, I do.
Okay.
Okay, so you have a vendor that you classify on the BP Master as being 1099. Does every transaction then automatically get set as 1099?
It defaults to that.
Okay, so every AP invoice would have that on it automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Because the vendor does.
Yeah, but you can say that for like this one, I don't want it to be.
Okay, so on the accounting tab, I could go for that individual document and change that.
Yeah.
That's only for open documents, I think is what I heard you say, right?
Yes. So
if I missed that and I didn't want that, I would go to the 1099 editing window to take that amount out?
Yeah. To reduce the amount would be through 1099 editing.
Okay. Can I use the 1099 editing window to increase?
No. Increases are only through the opening balance account functionality.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
And so what if I have a vendor that has two different 1099 boxes, really? Like maybe they're miscellaneous, but I also pay them rent or something.
yeah,
Since the BP Master only has one, is it your suggestion that I just change that on the document as it comes up, or do you think it's a better suggestion to set up two BPs, one for rent and one for the other?
yeah, if you do rent every month, of course, I'd have that as being the default. And then if you only once or twice a year do a different kind of box, it's usually fairly easy to remember to change that when you're entering it to put it to the different 1099, because it's what's reported on is per invoice.
Okay.
But if you do about the same amount of each, I would definitely change this to be John Smith / rent, or
Okay. So it's kind of depending on what my personal needs are.
Yeah.
If I missed it like all year and it was just defaulting and now I wanted to switch it, I guess since if I needed to add data, then I would need to go to the 1099 opening balance and create a line specific to that particular 1099 box.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And change this to rent and
Do you know, does that posting date mean anything, or is that just like...
Just to get it in the year. I mean, you can
Okay.
do it whichever year month you want, as long as it's in the year.
Okay.
And so now this will get two different reports. Good question.
Okay. Thanks. So that would actually show up, I'm trying to think,
You
different boxes. But if I had separate vendors, they'll show up on totally different forms.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a limitation.
Yeah. So if you, and some people just like to have them on different forms, and there's no harm in doing it that way.
Right.
Just because that's how they reconcile things out.
And to your knowledge, does SAP currently support any like integration with the IRS or uploading?
No, I've talked to Edith and Ari, and they don't right now, which is I just found surprising, because quite a few vendors have more than 200 1099 box 7 things. So
Right.
we
So
are
currently they don't have like something
a
built
preferred
in,
one.
right?
No, the IRS
Okay.
does have for their fire installation, e-filing setup,
Okay.
a list to 200 of their favorite software that you can get off of online. But I don't know anybody yet who's used one of those. The people I've talked to so far have only just done mail-in
Okay.
1099s, or use a different service altogether and have to jump through all that. So does anybody out there use e-file format? No one? Should anyone out there be using the e-file format? Maybe I'll ask that way. The other thing that sometimes gets tricky that I forgot to mention is that you can put the limits in here. So if you want to have a limit in there, and then when you run I'm doing the wrong one. I have to quit hitting enter. So if you've already submitted them, but maybe you think you might want to rerun them, because submitted just means printed, doesn't really mean mailed out. So you could do show submitted and then rerun them for the year. And then include vendors lower than amount. So some people might want to, just to bring up for them what vendors that they started at the end of the year, and it reminds them to go back and you say, oh yeah, I forgot about that one, but I know there were 2 payments before that should have been 1099. So if you include everything even lower than the required amount, then they'll show up on your list, and you can just use as a reminder for yourself to edit them through 1099 editing. So in the creating the go ahead.
I was going to ask, what does the box above that mean, the include payments which are not based? Is that for ones that, like, if I did an opening balance, I would have to click that to get it to include?
Yeah, that are just journal entry remarks.
Okay.
I've never had to use that at this, yet, but that's what it's for.
Okay.
It's not the most common thing.
And so when you run this particular report, Carol, does it show you, it's showing you everything and exactly how it would be reported right then? Because I know you showed another report and you were saying that it was like you would need to check to see if they were actually paid in the year. Is this one actually pulling what is paid?
Yeah, this is pulling every invoice that was paid in the year that had 1099 information on it. So on the purchasing analysis report, I just use that to see every invoice and maybe go from 1 month earlier, to see everything. And then you can drill down and say, boy, this doesn't match to what my 1099 editing report says, so I must have missed one of these. And it just helps you to go back through the year, and it shows every single vendor. So as you're looking through it, you can say, oh, why on earth wasn't this guy that we only paid in June, but that should have definitely been on there. So it just lets you edit it visually. It's a nice way to double check yourself, because it's, everybody tries to get the W-9 right away, but there's always crises where the president or something or sales manager just wants it out right away. And so rules are rules unless they want to avoid them. So, and so that's just one way I use to check all of activities for the year. I don't know if anybody else has any.
Okay, so you kind of use them as a comparison.
Yeah, as a comparison and just as a reminder. And this seems suspiciously like a sole proprietorship kind of name, or I remember that vendor, and yeah, I think they're pretty small. I would be surprised if they're not 1099 eligible, So just, and every year, of course, it gets easier when you review these, because you clean it up. The first year is always the most painful. And then after that, it gets a little easier, because it's just the new ones added that might have gotten missed. So.
Can you show me again how you did the 600 limit? I saw you do it a little bit ago, but I missed the path.
Okay. So it's the 1099 table, and then if you hover over it, it'll show you the path. And then you can also just click on it and get to it. So in here you can put, if there's, whatever limit. Some people they just report everything and let the powers that be sort it out. But I don't bother doing below 600, because you don't legally have to. And I only buy a minimum amount of forms, so why bother? But this is where you would do it in the 1099 setup table. And then you have to double click on the 2 to get this to open. You can't just double clicking on the line doesn't do anything. It's the 2, which, as you might have noticed that in quite a few things that you think, I know I've seen them get into, go deeper into that. How do I do it? But it's because it's the 2 that you have to click on, not the description.
I'm following. My next question for you was, when you were in the opening balances and you brought up that list, are they going to populate if they have a tax ID listed in the business master, but we haven't checked the 1099 box in the business master? Are we going to be able to see that list and see that 1099 form is missing off of their master?
No, because this is where you could add those ones. So that's why I go through the purchase analysis, and just to see all my things, I'm like, oh yeah, this why on earth isn't this one over there that should be there? And so then you can just add them.
Okay.
Yeah, do.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, Carol, then it's not based off of the federal ID number being filled out. It's based off of the 1099 box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is whether or not it actually shows as a 1099 vendor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and ones that don't, you could go in there and see, okay, are any of these, okay, some of these are open. Maybe I can just go in and edit the one that I need. But this is because the year is closed. It doesn't let me do that one. I don't think I have.
But we could run a query or something, correct, to say, show me where the federal tax ID is here, but I don't have the 1099 box filled out.
So if you know, like this one should have been, and then you can go in here and while it's open, that's super important to remember that if the invoice is still open, you can edit it right here, which is, of course, the easiest way to edit it, and saves you all kind of grief later on. But, that's not always possible. So you have to do what you have to do. But now, if I were to run that again, oh, that's right. I forgot. This only brings up the ones that you've actually physically added to the list and want to change. Oh, no. I know why. It's not going to bring up that one because it hasn't been paid yet. I've set that to be subject to 1099, but since it hasn't been paid, it's not going to be on the list because it's only for what was paid in the year. It's tricky. I tell you, this is one of the most dreaded parts of accounting in my mind. I'd almost rather do bank recs all the time than this. But it's a close. It's tied for me. Does anybody else have any insights or things they do different that have worked good for them? Well, go ahead. Okay, if there's nothing else, I guess that's all I have. Feel free as you're going through and specifically on your database, if you have questions, just shoot me a screenshot and we can help you out.
Kyle, I have a final question. Is there any way to get access to this video?
Oh yeah, we're recording it and then we'll post it on the website.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Carol.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.